oats, but the main focus was try to get the organic matter up, and now we're starting to add some legumes to the mix to try to get some nitrogen fixation too. And this year we've tried a test plot with some different cover crops, and it got wet and the slugs ate a lot of it. And you can see it down there if we want to later. But what I've got here is different stages of these cover crops are different planted at different times. Is some barley, wheat, and oats, triticale, and ryegrass. It's all different. Everything's labeled here. But this field here was planted in black oats, radish, Australian winter peas, and frosty racine clover. Then the other half, quarter or third of it is planted as plain wheat, and it wasn't done by plan. It was done by what happened. We ran out of seed, and this is actually a little bit too heavy. It looked good. We done a thing in December. We dug up some dirt back here, looked at the radish, how far they went down, and now you can see some residue of the radish there, but you're not gonna be able to dig to see where it's went. It's because it could be decayed. We had the clover, when you dug it up, we saw some nitrogen fixation on that, and same with the peas. There's still some peas and clover in here. It's a little bit harder to find. Hopefully, maybe it'll come back out, but not sure if it will or not. But back here a month ago, we done some soil cover crops is planted back when we done the test plot. And the one thing I reckon what I'm saying or seeing is the cover crop might not justify the first year, but you might see it down the road a couple years from the organic matter and the breakdown of different stuff. And another thing, the reason what I thought about doing here, and we've been doing double crop soybeans after wheat. For the last 3 years, we've not done anything more than break even. So if we come in August, September, plant some what I call 4 season cover crop, can we get more of a benefit from that than we are with the double crop soybeans? And that's what we will kind of watch and monitor that too. But my thought is, if you plant the stuff early enough, get more root mass there, which will help your organic matter. That if you get some legumes in the mix, where it's put some nitrogen back in, next year's corn should should see a boost in that. And I know I've talked to different people who's done a little bit of them. There's some of them seeing, not necessarily this mix, but they're seeing a 10 to 15 or 15 to 20 bushel increase in their corn probably the year after some of this cover crop by planting, by not doing double crop soybeans and planting a 4 season cover crop.
So, and it just seemed like ever since we put cover crops, and one thing about cover crops is that's the only way that you're going to, that and manure is the only way you're going to build your CEC in the soil, and to build your organic matter up in your soil. And your organic matter has got the highest CEC of any clays, anything else that you can put on the soil. So if you want to increase your CECs, which CEC is your holding capacity basically for the whole nutrients, including water. And so, in the past 2 years, water has been probably our most limiting factor here in the valley. And so, and that hillside was really poor, really rocky, and what they did on that, they've put a lot of bed pack up on that hillside, and it's been amazing how they've increased the organic matter on that hillside, and you can definitely see it. We've also used black oats up there on that hillside as well, and so the thing about black oats, just as a field man, and just what I've seen through the valley, is it's got a real fibrous root on it. And so, when before we discovered the black oats, we were using ryegrass, because ryegrass is another tremendous. And the main purpose of using ryegrass was protein, but also it also had a very fibrous root system, and it was great to build organic matter and also to mellow the soil. And so, but the problem with ryegrass, it's got a very waxy cuticle on it, and it can be very difficult to kill because of that waxy cuticle. Where black oats, it's almost they remind you of barley a little bit. If you plant them real early and they get really rank, you'll see they die really easy. And then especially if you put manure on them over the winter time, it brings in disease, and they're very susceptible to disease. So that's something you've got to watch on black oats. Another thing with black oats that can be a deterrent is I've got guys that want a double crop and they plant black oats. And this past year, black oats worked good because they needed fall forage, and so a lot of them took it off for fall forage, and it's really high in protein, and so it was a supplement for this past fall. It doesn't do the best coming back in the spring unless you fertilize it. It will, but what you don't want to do is plant it real early, let it get big, get rank like this. You won't if you were going to want to harvest this, it really wouldn't be. It wouldn't be worth harvesting. So the only way that you're going to harvest it is plant it about the third week of September. It acts a lot like barley. Barley is the same way. You plant barley too early, it'll get rank like this and die out. Because both of those are real similar. They're susceptible to disease. And then another thing is comparable to, it comes off about the third week of May if you want to harvest it for forage, and that can throw you on the late side. So some guys, if they're going to chop, it works good third week of May, but that's kind of the downside of black oats.
I'll say on that note, I've been dealing with these things since probably going on 6 years now.
Yeah.
In the first year we started dealing with 2019, the planted fall of 18, harvest of 19 was the earliest we've had oats come off. And if you think about it, we had a really warm spring in 2019, and we had plenty of moisture after all the rains of 18. But the oats are the latest maturing of all your cereals.
Yep.
They're about 3 weeks later heading than rye. And they do break dormancy just a little bit later in the spring because they're later maturing. They're a little more susceptible to cold, so they like that warm weather. But they are aggressive growing. And Stuart's right; they do have a tremendous root mass. So we've learned a lot about them, and they have a great fit. But sometimes we need to temper expectations as to what guys think they may or may not want to do with them.
Everything's got its place. It's a tool. You just got to learn where to fit it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of what your goal is too.
Yes.
And that's what we've talked about too.
The beauty part about black oats, you can plant them for a cover, guys, and you don't have to worry about them taking off and just like rye. Getting away from you. Rye, if you just use it for a cover, it'll by the end of April, it'll get tall and big and rank, and then it'll get this tall. Black oats really won't take off till the first part of May, and they'll really tiller in the spring, but they'll stay low,
Mm-hmm.
and it won't be anything but leaf. And when you terminate that stuff, it'll just melt down, and it's beautiful, most beautiful plant you ever did see. I'm excited that these guys that planted in the fall took it off for fall, and they're going to terminate it and plant corn in it this spring. I'm really excited to see how that's going to play.
It really mellows the soil out.
Yes.
How big do you let it do maximum nitrogen fixing till it's fully bloomed, or you get that bloom going? Fixation balanza clover will start nodulating 30 to 40 days after planting and emergence, but you don't get a lot of fall growth. It's not aggressive in the fall. It's working on roots. But here in the valley, we've kind of struggled with balanza clover because it's really small, and if you get it too deep, it's not going to come up. But also with our multi-species, sometimes it just gets out-competed. So we chose to go with Frosty Persine here. One, it will fixate nitrogen a little bit earlier, but it has a growth habit like alfalfa, so it can be fairly aggressive. And we actually use it sometimes to thicken up some thinning alfalfa stands because it's an annual, biennial, depending on when you plant it. But we've got some here that you can see that's here with the oats. And these will, what I'd say, have some decent amount of growth for where we're at in the growing season right now. But I wanted to just go ahead and dig one up here, and let's take a look at what we have for root and nitrogen structure underneath of that. So
I've got a bucket of water over there if you want to.
yeah, if you don't mind.
I'll get it.
So and this will be good. So here you can see. This is a black oat plant that had some winter kill, but you can see real easily, even that one small plant's got a nice fibrous, fairly deep root structure that's doing you some soil conditioning and whatnot. So we'll dump that in. So if you ever really want to know what your roots look like, a basic good a bucket with water and just dunk it and do a root wash to get a lot of that debris and residue off of there. So you can see haven't got it all. It takes several dunkings because the higher the organic matter, the more water holding capacity that dirt has, and it doesn't come off as easy. You've all seen the rain simulators with cover crop, no cover crop, and how that goes. But there you can see that root on that oat. It's a good 4 inches down, which is deeper than your planting zone on corn. So you're conditioning that soil right there. So now here's breaking up that soil and making it easier to work through. So this is looking really nice. So that's one little clover plant. But look how deep that root, how long that root is. You're a good 4 inches down. It's not as fibrous and as massive as the black oats are, but you're getting a different root structure and you're getting the depth out of it. But so if you look here closely, might have to come in to see this. There's your nitrogen nodules that it is. For a plant no bigger than it is, you've got some nice nitrogen nodulation that's already occurred there. And that was probably from some of what it did in the fall because it's close up to the top of that stem there. But the longer this goes into the spring, we're not going to terminate this probably for, another month maybe? Yeah. So it's going to continue, as it continues to grow and photosynthesizes, it's going to continue to nodulate. So that's the benefit of some of these legumes that nodulate early. You're getting more nitrogen fixing. You're getting more nutritional benefit to your soil out of that. And that's
this is smaller,
yes.
Smaller seeds, so probably 2 pounds would be sufficient on that.
All right, so we dug that clover up, and we got a pretty. So this was a winter pea that was planted, like I said, late August. You can see we got a little frost injury, a little winter kill, but that's a good size pea. I mean, you can see how these things will run. But they companion well with the cereal because it gives them something to grow up with and help hold it up. So dig around that.
In the fall, back in December, you could still see them. Oh, sure. What's the difference in the color of them?
When you squeeze them.
So they'll be pink?
You want them to be pink. If you cut them open and they're pink inside, it's healthy and it's doing its work. If it's brown, that nodule's already died. And it's no longer fixing nitrogen.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's releasing nitrogen, but it's just died. It's already in that release process.
So real quick, before I dunk this in, just by pulling that soil up, you can already see the white nodules that are spread throughout that root zone. Right there, right there. There's some in here. Right there. So I'm not going to try to. Oh yeah, right there's a huge cluster. So I'm not going to try to break any more of this off by hand because I don't want to lose them. So. And we still may lose some as this stuff falls off and breaks the roots. But yeah, so that one broke off. But,
what I'm seeing is the peas tend to be more aggressive in the fall, and it seemed like they produce a lot more nodules. But like I said, you got to plant them a little earlier. You got to get them in the ground by September.
So I mean that's part of the root structure that broke off as I was putting it in the ground. But even there, you can see there's a healthy amount of nodules on those lower roots that are in there.
Was that more than the frosty Bracine?
Yes.
That's what
it had a bigger root system, and it had a more growth, so it was growing better.
So planted at the same time, and then you're seeing, I mean, a lot more nodules.
Yeah. So if you really break that apart, you can start to see them. They're spread out. So that's going to be more nitrogen deeper in your soil zone as you go through there.
Don't forget to mention that earthworm.
Oh yeah. By all means, yeah. The earthworm is the key. He's the king of that thing right there. Which there's not a shortage of those by any stretch of the imagination.
Look at that.
But here, so we talk about early nodulation, and this is most of these legumes, they will start nodulating at the top of the root, close to the base of the plant, and then work its way down the root structure as it goes. So right here, this is a prime example where this plant rooted up and started. You can see, look at that cluster of nodulation right there. I mean, and as this plant continues to grow, it's going to continue to set and fixate nodules.
How long does it take till that's available for corn?
Typically, if these things are healthy and going, a lot of times they don't really release that nitrogen until the plant dies.
So it depends on when you terminate.
Depends on when you terminate it. But also, you get some natural loss due to either something cutting a root off, feeding through the root, that's going to die and release. But it depends on termination. But most
after
legumes,
it's terminated, how long after it's terminated,
That's
Michael?
what I was
2 to 3
saying.
weeks?
yeah, I'd say it'll start within 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah. So that's why we don't want to not put any commercial nitrogen down when we're getting our crops started, because there's an immediate need. But this is going to be a little bit more feeding throughout the season and going there. But you can see there's nodules right up here at the base. They're scattered down through. You got a big cluster right there. There's another big cluster, and even as you come down through here where those other roots were attached, they're spread out through there. But yeah, Stuart's right. Of course, winter peas are a bigger seeded. They're a little bit smaller than a soybean. So it's a higher seeding rate to get enough per acre, 10 to 15 pounds. 10 is kind of the minimum I go with in a mix. But
I planted some black oats and peas for after my sweet corn, and it was about the 3rd week of October. And my black oats are just green. I had no winter kill with them at all, but they're about that tall. And then the peas are all out in there. I went with a bag. I went with a little higher rate than I should have.
So this is washed up a lot better, and you can see you got nodules coming down. You've got that big cluster there, and then over here in this root ball from the oats, there's more nitrogen clusters there. So I would say, of what we've looked at here, comparing this to that frosty Bracine, there's more nitrogen value here than there is with that. But that plant's going to grow pretty fast over the next 30 days. And, if we came back here in 3 weeks, you should probably see more nodulation there, and you'll see a little more here as well.
But it gives you a comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and what we did, obviously, was a multi-species cover crop. You had your radish, which helps with compaction, does that deep scavenging, bringing nutrients up into that tuber to redeposit into your root zone. You've got the fibrous root mass of the black oats, plus you've got biomass and ground coverage, and then you're getting nitrogen fixing from the clover and the winter peas. So trying to, the goal was, we knew this was going to corn, so we wanted to get some nitrogen benefits from it, we wanted to improve the organic matter in the soil tilth by the black oats, but also the radishes. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to watch this as we go. And, you know, good or bad, you know, with the seeding rate challenge we had, it'll be a good comparison to compare this to basically what's straight wheat next to it.
And how it plants.
I mean, we were here last week with your density probe, and we already noticed a difference in the compaction level difference. But it'll be nice to look at it from how it plants, but also follow the crop through to see if we can see differences in how the plant develops through the growing season, with this having some supplemental nitrogen to that not, but also, you know, is there going to be a yield difference between the two?
And if it turns dry, hold capacity of the moisture.
Yes. Yeah, we can pass these around as well to take a look. So
While you got your hands dirty, you want to dissect those over there and look at the difference in the root.
Yeah, we can do that.
Different town.
So you can see there, that's early planted, late August planted wheat. You know, you're about a 5-inch root zone there. You know, you got good mass. There's probably three plants of wheat in there, but a good root mass for comparison. So this would be September 16th. Let's see if I can break this apart here without too much trouble. And then this was planted really late. And obviously, you know, we know what October was for us. It was really dry. A lot of wheat that went in late October, early November didn't have much moisture to get going. So we certainly don't have the above ground biomass.
So let me say,
It's a fairly inexpensive, great starter program to cover crops. But like Kevin said, some of these things you can't easily measure the benefit from for at least a year, sometimes two. You know, you don't change organic matter overnight. It takes time to do that. But if you can increase your organic matter just 1%, you're increasing your nitrogen availability from that organic matter anywhere from 10 to 25 units of nitrogen through organic matter breakdown. So it's little things that come over time. Yes, this is a cost. This is an expense. But I think of it more as a depreciable expense that, yeah, you're spending it now, but you're going to get the benefit later. And that's a conversation we've been having for years with farmers. Oh, well, I'm putting $50 an acre out in cover crop, but I don't see that return. They don't see it right away. They tend to see it more in the long play over time, either with reduced herbicide use because we're getting better weed suppression, being more efficient with our fertilizer applications because we're making fertility that we put out a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago more available, and that shows up through your soil tests. So
I've got